At the end of the previous volume, Sakayanagi and Ryun made a bet where the loser will drop out of school, so today, let's find out which of them that will be. Classroom of the Elite, Year 2, Volume 12. With the second year nearing its conclusion, Chabashir-sensei enters the classroom, announcing the final exam. Turning on the monitor, the class rankings are displayed, and Chabashir admits she still finds it hard to believe that they've climbed all the way to Class B. As determined by the unanimous vote special exam, they will be battling Ichinosei's class, and they'll need to choose 3 representatives to act as their vanguard, middle guard, and general. These representatives will take part in 1-versus-1 battles, with the objective of defeating the opposing general. The non-representative students will also be participating in this exam. However, this is all the details she's been given so far. They can assume, since it's being held inside, the exam can't be a physical contest, and to ensure fairness among classes, it won't be academic either. Of course, the winning classes will gain class points, though surprisingly, the losers will not be penalized. While walking home with Kei, Ayanokoji thinks about Ryun and Sakayanagi's bet. His plan up to this point was to keep all 4 classes at an equal power level, so what should he do since Ryun or Sakayanagi will be dropping out? Kei's voice snaps him back to reality, and he apologizes for not paying attention, before asking if they can cancel their weekend date. Before the exam, Ayanokoji really wants to speak with all 4 class leaders, and Kei reluctantly agrees to letting him meet with Ichinosei. Though maybe Ayanokoji would like her to spend the night tonight at least, he declines, under the pretense of being too focused on the exam to give her proper attention. Then, even though visible cracks are beginning to form in their relationship, they agree to a movie date after the exam. It's Friday after school when Ayanokoji meets Horikita in the cafe. Due to the vagueness of the final exam, it's hard to make a solid strategy, though she's relieved that Ayanokoji feels the same way. Realistically, all they can do is pick the 3 strongest representatives they can. She then states that herself, Ayanokoji, and Koenji would be the dream team, but of course Koenji would refuse. If only Ayanokoji would cooperate, she'd at least have some peace of mind, and to her shock he agrees, but has some conditions. First off, he wants to be the general, which would potentially hurt Horikita's reputation as Class B's leader. She's curious why, and is told he'd prefer if Horikita defeats Ichinosei before his turn even arrives. The second condition is that if he competes and wins, he wants full freedom from any class responsibilities just like Koenji. Though if by chance he loses, then he promises to fully cooperate with the class for the next 6 months. Carefully thinking it over, and realizing if she declines, Ayanokoji can just refuse to cooperate anyways. Horikita accepts this deal to make him the general. As a final mention, Ayanokoji demands that she gets the class's approval for this, though of course, everyone needs to keep this a secret. With this meeting over, Ayanokoji heads to the next, but runs into Hasebe along the way. It's been a while, but she's finally beginning to feel like herself again, and wants to get the pre-Sakura expulsion friend group back together. Amasawa loudly asks if Ayanokoji is cheating on Karuizawa, causing Hasebe to excuse herself. It turns out Ayanokoji signaled for Amasawa to interrupt them, because he doesn't have time to waste on useless stuff right now. We learn Amasawa has decided to stay at the school, so Ayanokoji asks her if she can investigate Nanase. Of course, Amasawa is happy to help her senpai, though they both know he's just making up a job in order to give her purpose. Entering the karaoke room, he jokes there's no lackeys today, followed by Ryun urging him to take a seat. Not wanting to get juice thrown at him, Ayanokoji declines, before bringing up the bet with Sakayanagi, and that this might be their last chance to talk. If that's the reason for this meeting, then Ryun thinks Ayanokoji should be meeting with Sakayanagi instead. So what type of underhanded tactics is being planned this time? But instead, Ryun declares he will crush Sakayanagi head on. Of course, Ayanokoji isn't about to believe that, and he's asked and denies being a representative in the exam. The next stop for the day is the vending machines, where he randomly brings up Sakayanagi, and Yamamura reveals they've begun talking more often. Today he's come with a certain question, and she hesitates to answer until Ayanokoji promises not to interfere with Class A. Being convinced, Yamamura shows him a video on her phone. He compliments her skills, before leaving and calling Kei for a favor. Thanks to his girlfriend's assistance, Ayanokoji finds Matsushita, and asks her if she's come to understand his true ability yet. Yeah, she still thinks he's holding back, so he promises to show even more if she'll help him with the information he just acquired. Surprised he knows this, she confirms some of their classmates are in fact involved. Matsushita also admits to feeling relieved that Ayanokoji is a representative, though he warns her their class still needs to grow. Later that night, Hashimoto enters Ayanokoji's dorm, where it's confirmed that he's still supporting Ryun. Sadly, due to the lack of exam details, there's not much Hashimoto can do to intervene. Ayanokoji then declares that Hashimoto's lies won't work on Sakayanagi, but even so, Hashimoto plans to keep fighting the same way he always has. The topic of Ayanokoji's potential class transfer is then brought up, though Ryun's potential defeat and expulsion is mentioned instead. If that happens, Hashimoto's last chance of survival would be to beg Sakayanagi for forgiveness, and the only advice Ayanokoji gives is for Hashimoto to not lie to himself. Sunday morning, Ayanokoji arrives early to find that Ichinose is already here. After reassuring her that Kei is okay with this chat, Ichinose wants to know if Ayanokoji is going to be a representative in the final exam. He claims to not currently be planning to, however it's always possible Horikita could ask him later. If by chance he is a representative, he'd appreciate it if Ichinose would take it easy on him, though she was about to ask him the same thing. Next, their promise from last year is brought up, where they both agreed to meet up again at the end of their second year, so they make concrete plans to have their promised meeting after the final exam is over. After a thorough workout at the gym, he's ambushed by Kanzaki, who needs to know if Ayanokoji is going to be a representative. He answers no, but Kanzaki reveals there's a rumor going around saying otherwise. Of course, rumors are nothing more than rumors, though Kanzaki wants him to promise that he'll refuse Horikita if she asks him to be a representative. I mean, if Ayanokoji can help his class win, then isn't it natural for him to cooperate? Obviously, Kanzaki can't disagree, and even apologizes for asking. He just believes his class is doomed if Ayanokoji is a representative. That evening, around 10 p.m., he receives an unexpected call from Sakayanagi. Of course, he wants to discuss her bet with Ryun, and to no surprise, she has complete confidence that she'll be the victor. Next, Sakayanagi bluntly asks if he's going to be a representative in this exam, but Ayanokoji refuses to answer. Following this, they talk about how she's begun mingling with her classmates, and that it's Ayanokoji's fault her emotions are beginning to change. If she doesn't want emotions, she should just suppress them, though they will likely bring her new unforeseen strategies. Though it's the fact that Ayanokoji's emotions never change is part of the reason why Sakayanagi finds him so intriguing. She's then reminded that he still owes her a favor, but she chooses to postpone that until their third year. Ayanokoji then declares to having no preference to who will win the bet, and upon hearing another yawn, Ayanokoji decides they've talked enough. Now, as an outsider, it's not his place to meddle in Sakayanagi's bet with Ryun, though if he's being honest with himself, there is a specific person that he wants to win. The morning of the exam, Ayanokoji stumbles upon Kiryun preparing to leave school, and after a brief, unimportant conversation, Ayanokoji is the last representative to arrive. An anxious Horikita complains he should have been here earlier, as they step inside, seeing each class's representatives. After Sakugami and Hoshinomiya confiscate their electronics, they take their seat, but Horikita is too nervous to focus. Knowing the perfect solution, Ayanokoji grabs her side. She uncontrollably yelps, turning her anxiety into embarrassment. Mashima and Chabashira then enter the room to begin the explanation. Real talk. The exam details are super confusing, and a lot of them don't impact the story at all. So for that reason, I'm just going to cover the important stuff, and then I'll further explain the details later if needed. Though in a broad sense, this exam is a lot like the party game Werewolf, if you've ever played that. Now they need to separate their class into 5 groups of participants, and throughout the exam, the representatives will select which groups they want to send into the discussion. These participants will be assigned random roles, which the representatives will need to guess in order to increase or decrease lives accordingly. Each participant role is on screen now, along with a brief description of what they do. We do need to discuss the traitor, as this is a once per game usable privilege. Each round the traitor survives, the representative receives valuable information, all the while the defending representative can attempt an interrogation. A participant selected as a traitor has potential to earn 50 class points, but also has a very small chance of being expelled if they choose to lie. Then the last thing to take note of is that the participants are being told slightly different rules in order to ensure they take the discussion seriously. Inside the waiting room, our trio discusses the rules and separate their classmates into 5 groups. Horikita and Harada think Ichinose is a worrisome opponent this time, since her social skills are by far the best in the school. Changing the topic, Ayanokoji asks if they can save the traitor privilege for him. Horikita complains that he wants her to win yet is trying to handicap her, so Ayanokoji sweetens their deal so that if he loses, he promises to cooperate for the entirety of the 3rd year. Then with a few minutes remaining, Ayanokoji gets Ryun's attention before making his way to the restroom. Though out in the hallway, he's stopped by Hoshinomiya sensei, who bluntly asks him to lose the exam as she must defeat Chabashira. Of course, such a big ask needs to have appropriate compensation, so she offers to leak him teacher-only information in the future. After After being declined, Hoshinomiya strokes his ear, saying there's one other thing she could do for him. And Ayanokoji jokingly asks if she's offering to clean his ears. Realizing he can't be swayed, Hoshinomiya threatens to take drastic measures herself, and Ayanokoji is very interested to see what she'll do. Elsewhere, the participants are given their portion of the explanation, but Matsushita wants more details on their representatives. They're told they only need to focus on their specific roles, and that breaking any rules or prying further could result in a penalty. Now, Kei and Sato are both feeling uneasy, but some encouragement and advice from Yukimura allows them to calm down. Our first match begins with Harada facing off against Hamaguchi. They intently watch the 5-minute discussion, but when it comes time to nominate, they both choose to pass. Then since they didn't nominate, the honor students vote Kei out of the discussion. Both boys pass during the second round as well, though at the end of the third round, Hamaguchi successfully nominates an honor student, causing Harada to lose 3 of his 5 lives. During the fourth discussion, Yukimura openly declared himself a graduate. Both representatives nominate him, and both lose 1 life for being incorrect. They pass a few more times until the 8th round, where Harada makes an unsuccessful nomination, losing his final life. In another room, Sanada from Class A is facing off against Nishino from Class C. Being confused and overwhelmed, it only takes 4 rounds of discussion for Nishino to make 3 incorrect nominations, eliminating herself from the exam. Katsuragi confidently enters the room next, stating it's been a while since they've had a chance to talk. The first discussion commences, and afterward, Katsuragi urges Sanada to make the first move. Openly admitting he chose to pass, he watches Katsuragi make a correct nomination, instantly dropping Sanada to 3 lives. Uncertain how Katsuragi knew, he declares next round will be different, but Katsuragi calls his bluff, correctly assuming that Sanada did nothing during the first match, and simply watched Nishino self-destruct. The second discussion comes and goes, and in a panic, Sanada incorrectly nominates Morishita, losing 2 more lives. The following round, Katsuragi makes a mistake, losing 1 life. However, the very next round, Katsuragi declares this is the end. With only 1 life remaining, Sanada has to make a correct nomination, or else he risks losing, but winds up making a mistake, losing 2 lives himself. And it's revealed that Katsuragi actually passed, successfully bluffing Sanada into making the mistake. Kito is the second representative for Class A, and in the first 2 rounds, he makes 2 incorrect nominations. In the third round, Kito makes yet another mistake, all the while Katsuragi correctly guessed an honor student, which together drains Kito's last 4 lives. Obviously, Kito is pissed at the overwhelming defeat, though it's pointed out that Katsuragi has been a part of Class A and Class C, giving him a unique advantage in this exam. In a rage, Kito grabs Katsuragi's shirt, but the observer steps in, warning that any further violence will warrant a penalty. As Sakayanagi enters, she admits to being impressed with Katsuragi, and then reveals that Kito wanted to be a representative in the hopes of defeating Ryan himself. Katsuragi confidently declares the time has come to avenge his grudge against Sakayanagi, who correctly guesses that grudge to be Yahiko's expulsion. It turns out, recently, she's begun to understand how he might feel. Katsuragi asks if she'd act differently now, but Sakayanagi only says his revenge will fail. Off-screen, Horikita flawlessly defeated Hamaguchi, so her next opponent steps inside. Kanzaki demands to know whose idea it was to make Ayanokoji the general, as he's not the type to volunteer, but Horikita states that maybe Ayanokoji is changing. Round 1 and 2 of the discussion are uneventful, but the third discussion ends with Miyaki claiming to be a graduate, and calling out Norihito as an honor student. Kanzaki chooses to believe Miyaki, while Horikita thinks he was lying, and after nominations, Kanzaki loses 4 of his 7 total lives. The very next round, both representatives correctly nominate the last honor student, resulting in the end of this discussion and new groups being brought in. During the intermission, Kanzaki would like a favor, and straight up asks for Horikita to purposely lose this exam. With a lengthy back and forth, she declines. Kanzaki bows, and Horikita reminds him that Class D is counting on him. With his last hope crushed, Kanzaki believes the outcome is already decided, and completely gives up on winning. Thus, it only takes a brief moment for Horikita to drain his last 3 lives. The first round of Sakayanagi vs Katsuragi ends with very little info, and Katsuragi warns her not to look down on him. Both representatives choose to pass, and Sakayanagi comments that he always was the cautious type. Katsuragi counters that he doesn't let his emotions influence his actions, but she points out that Kito messed up his tie, and that if he was truly calm, he would have noticed. Ichinose is impressed that Horikita beat both boys flawlessly, though Horikita claims it was just a coincidence. The first round of discussion commences, and afterward, Horikita plays it safe by passing. However, Ichinose successfully nominates Chiba as having an executive role, though she didn't specify which role, meaning Horikita only loses a single life. Horikita is shocked that nomination was correct, but Ichinose thinks it was pretty easy to tell. Following the second round, Ichinose makes another correct nomination, which along with Horikita's mistake, nets her -2 lives. Due to this, Horikita wonders if maybe Ichinose is getting lucky, but through a smile, she reveals it wasn't a guess at all. In the third round, Horikita actually gains 1 life, and realizing she stands no chance against this monster, Horikita brings up her battle with Kanzaki. But Ichinose already assumed that Kanzaki fell into despair and simply gave up. She also knew ahead of time that Ayanokoji would be a representative. However, if it's this exam, Ichinose is confident she can win. After numerous rounds, Sakayanagi has 9 of her 10 lives, although Katsuragi only has 1 remaining. Without any room for error, Katsuragi struggles to make a nomination, when suddenly Sakayanagi shows him her tablet, as she nominates Sawada as an honor student. You see, Sakayanagi is enjoying this match and wants it to last longer, though Katsuragi passes, not taking the bait, only to find out that Sakayanagi's nomination was in fact correct. It's explained that if Katsuragi took the bait, the match would have ended, and thus a whole new group of participants would be brought in. Then in that situation, Katsuragi would fall back on his cautious nature, allowing her to easily take the victory without losing any more lives. Then as he leaves, Sakayanagi states he and Ryun work very well together. Upon Horikita's defeat, Harada blames himself for not doing better, though Ayanokoji simply believes she was outmatched. And out in the hallway, Horikita gives Ayanokoji permission to make fun of her. He points out she defeated 2 people, but Horikita really wanted to win, not only for the class's benefit, but also so that Ayanokoji would acknowledge her. Next, she's reminded that he didn't allow her to use the traitor, and then forcefully pulls her into a hug, before stating that she should rely more on her allies. Now, let's revisit the traitor role before we continue. A representative can plant a traitor in the opposing class, which will give them info every round. If the traitor survives the match, they have the choice between 50 class points or 5 million private points, but if the traitor is caught lying, they will be expelled. Inside, Ayanokoji apologizes for lying about not being a representative, but it didn't bother her, since they are opponents after all. Even though this is the final exam, Ichinose seems perfectly calm, though she reveals being with him always makes her nervous. Just before the discussion begins, Ayanokoji offers up an idea. If they both reveal and eliminate the traitors in the first match, then neither representative would have to worry about anyone getting expelled. She points out they shouldn't eliminate the traitors, but instead use them to gain 50 class points. Ayanokoji agrees she should do that, but personally he can't fully trust his classmates, so he prefers to eliminate his traitor instead. The first discussion ends, and they cooperate to each choose the person they want as the traitor. For the next 2 rounds, Ayanokoji purposely interrogates innocent classmates in order to avoid suspicion, before calling out Meizono in the 3rd round. Now, Meizono admits this situation makes her nervous, however she immediately denies being the traitor. As a lie, Ayanokoji says that his previous interrogation accused her of acting suspicious. That's super annoying, but since the traitor can earn 50 class points, then maybe it's okay if they're not found. She also wonders how much of a problem it would be if the traitor stayed in the game, causing Ayanokoji to state it's somewhat convenient actually. With that, Meizono officially declares she's not the traitor, and thus begins exiting the room. Ayanokoji boldly declares that she is in fact the traitor, and that according to the rules, Meizono will be expelled. Huh? She only lied for the sake of the class, as she thought Ayanokoji just agreed to let her go. An exam observer let slip there wasn't supposed to be any expulsions, and then suggests they redo this interrogation. Ayanokoji reveals that he actually wants Meizono expelled, as he knows she's been leaking the class's secrets to her boyfriend Hashimoto. Begging for forgiveness, she promises to not betray the class again. Ayanokoji, however, doesn't believe her, and firmly stands his ground that Meizono is to be expelled in accordance with the rules of this exam. Leaving his screaming classmate behind, Ayanokoji returns to the exam room, where Ichinose is very confused. Without dancing around the topic, Ayanokoji straight up thanks her for helping him remove that defective tool. Now, it's true that Ichinose is nearly unbeatable in this style of exam. However, there's ways to win outside of the discussions. Ayanokoji then brings up their previous year, specifically the time Sakayanagi leaked Ichinose's secret about shoplifting as a child. You see, there was a lot of other nasty rumors being spread around at the same time, and Ayanokoji admits to being the source of all of them. Confused, she doesn't understand how doing that would have benefited him at all. But Ayanokoji explains that for the past year, he's been carefully and strategically manipulating her for his own benefit. Finally realizing the Ayanokoji she loves is nothing more than a fabricated lie, Ichinose falls so deep into despair that she's unable to focus on the exam, resulting in Ayanokoji earning a flawless victory. Now Sakayanagi is down 1 life, however she doesn't see any way she can lose. Of course Ryun feels the same, and after some trash talk they each declare the other to be the last obstacle standing between them and Ayanokoji. With the start of the first match, Sakayanagi immediately places the traitor within his class. As the first discussion ends, Sakayanagi prompts Ryun to make his choice, and needing to eliminate the traitor as fast as possible, he winds up making an incorrect nomination, losing 1 life. After that, he chooses his first interrogation target, but concludes that Nakazumi is innocent. The following round, thanks to the traitor's info, Sakayanagi successfully nominates a graduate student, while Ryun nominates an executive, meaning he only loses 1 life. It takes numerous more rounds for Ryun to identify the traitor, and their current standing is Sakayanagi with 8 lives, ahead of Ryun's 6. This match comes to a close, and Sakayanagi urges him to use the traitor in the next group of participants. As the discussion begins, Shimizu from Class A immediately begins verbally attacking Tokido. This continues for the entirety of the 5-minute discussion, and by the end of it, Tokido is about to blow a fuse. It's fairly obvious this harassment was Sakayanagi's plan, and she points out that Tokido might angrily break the rules any moment, though this round both representatives successfully nominate the same person. The second discussion continues just like the first, with Shimizu exclaiming that Class C has no need for Tokido. With rage boiling over, his fist is raised, but Hiyori catches it, politely asking him to calm down. Tokido warns her to back off, but she reveals that Ryun told her that Tokido would never be rough with a girl, so they can assume Ryun placed Hiyori in this group, specifically to support Tokido when he needed it most. Sakayanagi is impressed with Ryun's counter, but is more surprised that he's actually helping Tokido grow. Multiple more rounds pass without any lives lost, and now we're preparing for the third match. At this point, both representatives acknowledge they underestimated the other, though Sakayanagi believes Ryun doesn't stand a chance against Ayanokoji. You know, he actually agrees with that assessment, however Ryun's determined to keep trying until he succeeds. 2 more entire matches come and go as Ryun is beginning to fall behind. For whatever reason, he's yet to use his traitor, all the while Sakayanagi is yet to make a single mistake. At the end of the 6th match, Sakayanagi has 5 lives, while Ryun only has 1. It's pretty clear that he's going to lose this battle, and thinking back, he doesn't think using the traitor would have made much of a difference. Without a doubt, the small girl surpasses him in certain areas, though Sakayanagi does deem him a worthy opponent. And Ryun reveals that Ayanokoji likely predicted this. You see, earlier in the restroom, Ayanokoji asked Ryun to deliver a message to Sakayanagi if he found himself losing. There's no incentive for him to do this, but out of curiosity, Ryun agrees to hear him out. Well, actually, Hoshinomiya has the message, so Ryun will need to select Hoshinomiya as the traitor. The problem is that Sakayanagi will never willingly select Hoshinomiya's group to participate. Now, Sakayanagi knows extending this match to uncover this message is a terrible idea, but I mean it's a message from Ayanokoji. Besides, it's not a satisfying victory since Ryun wasn't able to use the traitor freely, so she agrees to work together to hear the message. With that, Sakayanagi selects Hoshinomiya's group, and Ryun immediately makes Hoshinomiya the traitor. She seriously hates playing into Ayanokoji's hand like this, but after the first discussion, she moves to the interrogation room, which leaves Ryun behind, alone with his thoughts, cursing the fact that his time at the school is about to end. Hoshinomiya is curious why she'd ever choose his group, and they discuss how the exam rules prevented Hoshinomiya from interfering, but at the same time kept him safe. Not wanting to be expelled, he openly confesses to being the traitor, but Sakayanagi only wants to hear Ayanokoji's message. Huh? What message? The only thing Ayanokoji told him was to not lie to himself. With that advice in mind, Sakayanagi asks if he's actually a traitor, causing Hoshinomiya hesitantly say he might not be? In an attempt to uncover the hidden message, Sakayanagi begins asking about Hoshinomiya's past, and we learn that Hoshinomiya was bullied as a child and would frequently hide in the bathroom, which Sakayanagi states to be the source as to why Hoshinomiya is so quick to betray those around him. Graduating from Class A is how Hoshinomiya will prove to everyone that he's not useless. Sweetly, she again asks if Hoshinomiya is in fact a traitor. If he answers no, then Sakayanagi has the option to expel him, but she now understands Hoshinomiya better, so she might be willing to give him another chance. As tears fall from his eyes, Sakayanagi reminds him that she also used to keep everyone at a distance, so maybe the two of them are more alike than they realize. Then focusing her brain back on Ayanokoji's message, it finally clicks. Before the exam, Ayanokoji must have lied to her whenever he said he wasn't taking sides in their bet. You see, not once did Sakayanagi think about what Ayanokoji wanted. I mean, she knows his goal is to have 4 competitive classes battling in the 3rd year, and yet Sakayanagi straight up ruined those plans. The more she thinks about this, the more she comes to realize that Ayanokoji wants Ryun to stay at the school and grow. So the secret message meant only for her is Ayanokoji asking, "Please lose this battle." At this time, the Observer declares it's time for Hashimoto's formal confession, and stealing his resolve, Hashimoto declares himself to Sakayanagi exclaims Hashimoto already stated he wasn't the traitor, and then officially, Sakayanagi deems Hashimoto to not be the traitor in this exam. In accordance with the exam rules, failing to identify the traitor during an interrogation results in Sakayanagi losing her remaining 5 lives. Currently, Classroom of the Elite and Slime are the 2 active series that I am planning to continue. Not to say I won't revisit the others, but for reasons, I'm not exactly motivated to continue them. So please, let me know what new series you would like me to cover. For now, I'll be working on Slime Volume 14. Lastly, a massive shout out to Brian, Ninja Gaiden, Steel Astronauts Mark, and Michael Feldman for becoming my newest patrons. Then we have Jack as my new and only YouTube member.